What was that? Yes, I am excited for spooky season 2. What about you, Sachi? I think you're just excited to co host, aren't you? Well, hello, my spooky friends. This video is going to be a little bit shorter because I'm trying to do a lot of research on some of the things that are coming up for spooky season. So, I'm going to try to make things a little bit different. Some of you have said that you like kind of the variety of the TikToks and the letters. And then some of you have said that you miss the bedtime stories, which I'll try to throw in there some. Whoa, we are bright. Hold on. Let me turn this down. There. That was like some scary bright lights. All right. So I'm going to start today with some letters that you sent in. Now, this first one comes from Patricia R, and she shares several stories. I'll get that out. Share several stories. There we go. Silky, I stumbled on your podcast and absolutely love it. Well, thank you. I appreciate that. I've written in a few times already, but here are some more stories for you. When my ex husband and I were dating, he lived in a haunted house. I witnessed a couple of strange things, but didn't say anything to anyone. Footsteps coming down the basement stairs, but when I turned to see who it was, no one was there. Hearing a knock at the back door, and when I answered it, no one was there. That sounds like typically haunted house stuff to me, for sure. Funny thing is, no one ever confided these occurrences to anyone else. It was after the family had moved out of that house that someone said, well, at least this house isn't haunted. We all started talking about our experiences in the house they used to live in. That is kind of the way sometimes. Nobody says anything until somebody does, and then the whole thing just opens wide up, right? My boyfriend's dad had the scariest story, he recounted. The tapestry in his bedroom was one of Jesus holding a fluffy white lamb. He woke up one night and the tapestry was like a TV on, only it was Jesus and the devil fighting. I'm glad they moved out of that house. So it was kind of like the picture or the tapestry like morphed into something else. It was like an illusion that was being created by the powers that be. Hmm. I think that's interesting. I have observed sometimes things looking like something else when you know what it's supposed to be. It is, I think, kind of a common thing in a place that is very haunted. But there is a lot more to this story. She goes on to say, I am a Christian and believe you go to one of two places when you die. However, despite the fact that I have seen what I believe is proof that our deceased loved ones can hear us when we talk to them. Well, now, Patricia, I will say this. The Bible does talk about a great cloud of witnesses. You know, it kind of does say that people are watching us, like kind of cheering us on. So there is that. I was supposed to have visited my aunt and uncle for Thanksgiving, but couldn't make it out there after all. The Sunday after Thanksgiving, my uncle passed away unexpectedly in his sleep. Oh. I was racked with guilt and sadness. I went out on the front porch and said a long, heartfelt apology to my uncle for not being able to come visit, and I was so sorry I didn't see you one more time. I had already put my Christmas lights on the house and was very specific about what times I had them on. At 9 o'clock, I unplugged the Christmas lights and the light over my stove in the kitchen. I'm a creature of habit, so I know that only the salt rock light in the living room stays on all night. At about 3 in the morning, I got up to use the bathroom. Well, the light was on over the stove, and when I looked outside to see if my husband had come home early from work, Guess what else was on? Yep, the Christmas lights. No car in the driveway, so I was home alone. I unplugged the Christmas lights and turned off the light over the stove. The next day, when I got to thinking about it, maybe that was my uncle's way of telling me that he had heard me out on the porch and that he understood that I couldn't make it out for that visit. I mean, it certainly could have been. We don't know. The thing of it is I do believe that your uncle knew. Could they hear you? I mean, possibly. Again, I'm no expert on how soon we go somewhere and how long we hang around or what we can and can't hear. But like I said earlier, there is that passage that talks about that. I think they do know. And I can't exactly explain why, but I feel like they do. And what were the lights that? Was it something else? I don't know, but I definitely think the lights were supernatural. I mean, lights don't come on by themselves, especially both sets. And in my experience, lights are something that ghosts really love to play with. I think it's easy for them. Maybe that's the as you cross over 101, like that's the easy tricks, the easy parlor tricks. Okay, you can mess with the lights really quick. I don't think it takes much ghost skill. I could be wrong, but I feel like that's one of the first tricks you learn when you when you cross over. So it sounds like that could have been something that he actually did. But there's still some more, so let's go on. My mother lost both her parents within a few months of each other. Her mother in September and her father in early December. She was upset naturally and trying to keep a brave face for all of us. I was over visiting with her one afternoon. She was crying and apologizing that she couldn't hold it back. I told her, "You just go ahead and cry or talk, whatever you need to do." She kept looking at their pictures on the wall beside her chair. I told her, "Mom, you go ahead and talk to them. Tell them you missed them. Just say what you need to say." She looked at me and asked, "Really?" I said, "Certainly. Who's to say they can't hear you?" Well, I left shortly afterwards, and about half an hour later, my mom called me. She said, "You are never going to believe this, but I was sitting here looking at Grandma and Grandpa's picture, talking to them. That picture came down the wall and landed softly on the carpet without breaking the glass in the frame." I was astonished, but replied, "See, maybe they did hear you and wanted you to know." Hope you enjoyed these. Well, Patricia, I very much did enjoy those stories. And y'all remember, I prefer to use your stories. Don't make me go hunting for other stories from other people. I know that my subscribers have the best stories. So send them in. There's always a link below on where you can email them. Okay, so let's go to another email I got. And this one comes from Katrina. From 1996 to 2012, I lived in San Jose, California, in a house that had two spirits also living there. Of course, we were not told about this before moving into the rental. Of course not. They don't tell you even when you buy a house, they don't say, "Oh, by the way, she's haunted." Yeah, it's really bad for business for some reason. Go figure. And it took a bit to figure it all out. Finally, realized there were two, a woman and a man. They seemed to have territories. They did not cross in the house. Huh. I wonder if they knew each other and chose not to cross, or if they were from different time periods. Since I lived with them, I decided to name them. Well, that is really interesting. I have never named my ghost, but hey, maybe I should. Should I do that? Maybe. John and Louise. Well, you go, girl. Name those ghosts. Louise had most of the downstairs. She would get on phone calls, landline, and others could hear her saying, my gosh, and other small phrases. She did not like anything on a certain wall, Wow. And after a few rounds of having things flung off the wall, we gave up. She would also hold doors shut until the words, "Please, Louise," and then it would open. Oh my gosh. Hold on just a second. I've got a process here. So there was a wall that she didn't want anything. I wonder why. That is so interesting. I wonder what was on that wall before or what was up with that wall. Why she would fling things off of it. I would love to know. There's got to be a reason. And holding the door shut, I think I could see myself pranking people maybe. But that wall thing, that's got me stumped. I'm really curious about that. But let's see what else she has to say. The worst thing she would do is open the garage door. We had technicians come out, replace the mechanical garage door to no avail. Finally, I yelled at her, "Louise, do you want us to get robbed or attacked? Because that is what will happen." And it stopped happening on a dime. Oh my gosh, I guess she just wasn't thinking. She just wasn't realizing how dangerous that was. Huh. So she was pranking you, just not thinking about. I guess when you're in the afterlife, maybe you're just having a good old time. You're not really thinking about getting robbed because, like, you don't really have much, I guess. I don't know. I don't really remember a lot of what John did, but enough to know he was there. Then one evening, I was sitting in bed reading a physical book, looked up and saw a light ball, huge, fire colors, but it didn't look like fire, in the corner of my room. I glanced behind me to see if anything through the window was causing this. I didn't see anything but dark. I turned around to the light ball again as it rushed toward me and socked the book out of my hands. Oh my gosh. Yeah, I would have wet my pants, probably. I'm guessing that would have been like really shocking. And then I think I would have gotten angry. How dare you? The nerve, the unmitigated gall of you. Knock a book out of my hands. You, you disembodied bully. If you had asked me ahead of time how I would have reacted, I would have guessed fear, etc. But I stood up and yelled, well, self censor, but did not censor at the time. So y'all read between the lines to what she said. Dang it. If you have something to tell me, just tell me. No more of this BS. And that never happened again. Oddly enough, I was almost sad to leave them when I moved. Beside the light ball, I never saw them or anything. Well, I can see how when you get used to living with stuff like that, you do, I guess you kind of miss that activity or knowing that somebody's there if they're not really trying to hurt you. I mean, it sounds like Louise was a prankster and John really didn't do a whole lot. But boy, when he did it upright. But yeah, I can see where that would be like kind of, I guess, disappointing. You move to a new house and it's just, quiet and normal. Yeah. It's kind of a boring experience after the haunted house, right? Yeah. I don't think I'd like it, but who knows? Thank you so much for sharing that. I thoroughly enjoyed those stories, and I'm sure everybody else did. If you like those stories, please give a thumbs up, comment below, let her know what you think of John and Louise. Okay, now this one was I pulled from the comments that you put on the videos. This one is by Mary Kelly. My mom Eve passed in 1985. Many years later, my aunt, her sister, was in the late stages of her life. When her daughter came to visit her, she said, "You won't believe who came to see me today. Eve. And we had the nicest visit." She mentioned other loved ones too. My aunt passed within the next couple of days. It comforts me knowing our loved ones who passed are there to greet them at the end of life. Absolutely. I mean, can you imagine not just the dying process? Because I think that is scary enough, when you know that it's coming, and none of us really know what to expect. There's like a life book, what to expect when you're expecting, but, there's not really a book that says what to expect when you're expecting to die. So, we're all kind of walking that place alone. But can you imagine like leaving and not having your loved ones, usher you to your next destination, because you'd just be kind of like, okay, then, how do I get there? And, um, where do you go? Do you just like walk into a grassy field, or, jump on a cloud? I mean, like, what do you do? It's nice to have someone to there that to greet you and kind of show you around. I mean, I I feel like I'm gonna need some directions, because even with a GPS, I get lost. So I'm looking forward to someone, greeting me and saying, "Hey, come on this way. We know we won't find you for 1,000 years if you don't follow us." Maybe y'all are different, but that's me. And we have time for one more. This one is by Roberta Real. And this is in response to the last video I did on Appalachia. My father's side are from the Appalachians, but I don't know them. I was born, raised, and still live in Southern California. Does that make me a Southerner? Well, Southern California. It's South. I don't think, Roberta, is quite the same thing, which I guess, depending, you might find a blessing. We're kind of wild and weird out here in the deep South. I had one encounter in the woods when I was visiting family back east. My uncle's property led right into the woods. My daughter, who was 2 at the time, and I were back there standing when suddenly everything got quiet. No birds or even insect noises. We know what that means. I heard a snap like when you step on a twig. I don't know if it was an animal, a person, or something paranormal, but over the years I've learned to trust my instincts. All my senses said, "Get out of there," and we did. Well, I would say that's very wise, Roberta. Yeah, when you're in Appalachia and everything goes quiet, get out. Just get out. Don't even wait for a twig to snap. Most people say that when you hear things like that, it is much closer than you actually think it is. Even if the twig sounds close, it's still closer. Yeah. There's just something about the way things feel. Like a regular twig snap, you'd think a dog or an animal, even a raccoon or something, you wouldn't think that much about it. But in those situations, when you get that eerie feeling, you just know. Your gut just says, something ain't right here. And so, glad everything turned out. All right, I hope you enjoyed these stories. I am thinking about changing my schedule to Tuesdays and Thursdays instead of Sundays. I don't know, but then spooky season, it might be all over the place. So just look for those notifications. If you haven't subscribed, I mean, Scully and I, and even Sachi, who you can't see, we would really, really love it if you would subscribe. And you can, if you want to know when I'm posting a video, or going live, hit the notification bell. In the meantime, y'all, if you have a special request for spooky season, let me know. Otherwise, I'm going to be plotting and planning, and Scully is helping me. We're going to come up with some stuff. So make sure you stay close by, but whatever you do, just stay spooky. Bye bye.